All right, parents, here we go again. It's the Ask Dr. Tony episode. This is the Experience Miracles podcast, and I'm your host, Dr. Tony Ebel, an expert in pediatrics, neurodevelopmental disorders, and drug-free, nervous system-focused healthcare. On this weekly episode, I'll be addressing the top questions on every parent's mind. If there's one thing we love and welcome, it's parents who never stop learning, asking the hard questions, and advocating for your kiddos like none other. So get ready for some real talk, real-life clinical and parenting experience, and real easy to understand answers that will help your family take action and get to that next level of health and healing. You ask, I answer. Let's dive into today's episode. Okay, y'all, I love every kind of episode we do here with the Experience Miracles podcast. I love when I get to take a condition or a health challenge or a neuroscience topic and dive deep on it. I love when I get to interview moms and parents and other nerdy providers. Those interviews are a blast too. But when we get to field your questions, when your questions come in and we get to help you directly, because when you have these questions, you need the answers, right? To be able to move forward and take the actions, or as you're going to see with the context of this one, be able to continue in the actions that are really making transformative changes for your kids and families. And so this question might be one of the most important ones that we can answer in this format. And it's, hey, where's the evidence? And so I'm going to answer this one, obviously, most specifically to what I do and what we talk about, for a lot of this podcast, which is neurologically-focused chiropractic care and getting to the deep, foundational, real root causes of both chronic and acute illness in kids, which is nervous system dysregulation, which is stress, dysfunction, and imbalance on the nervous system, not just genetics and not just toxins, but it's really this whole perfect storm conversation we have here. But the way I'm going to answer this, hey, where's the evidence question, I'm going to bring in, really in a more loosely constructed way, but a very important way, all of natural, drug-free health care, right? And health interventions and solutions. So let's just, for simplicity's sake, because remember, if you listen to the podcast on the regular, we go as deep and nerdy and neurological and scientific as it gets. And then we bring it back parent speak, Iowa farmer speak, because I'm a farm kid from Iowa, and we make it simple because in this world of this information age and ChatGPT and Perplexity and Claude and Google and advanced modern medicine and all these different things, so often we lose the frickin' forest through the trees. And I love having more depth, more science. We're going to get very sciencey. We're going to talk about evidence-informed practice and evidence-informed care and interventions today. So we're going to need, we absolutely positively 1/3 of this, what's called evidence-informed triangle, and trifecta is science, it's data, it's research. And so we're going to go there first. But the truth is, so often, if we take an overly complex approach to questions like this, or an overly limited approach to things like this, then we get stuck. Then we don't get the help that our kids need. And I think if there's a profession that just overcooks things, especially this, it's kind of that standard medical pharmaceutical system. They like to take things and we've absolutely overcomplicated it, right? We have literally fully lost the forest through the trees. We can look at the results and we can say, it's not working. We have literally half of our kids have chronic illness when 2 to 3 generations ago, there was no such thing as chronic illness in kids. Like, it was so rare for someone to see. Now it's so rare to see a healthy kid. What the heck, right? So we can't just say, oh, you've got all the evidence and you've got all the answers. They're failing. And actually what I could do with this one, and I am, because I think for about 3 minutes, it's going to be important. Whenever I get this question, it's actually hard to answer this question calmly. I'll be honest, just being personal here, I'm very driven for families and parents and people to know the truth. And sometimes maybe it's just, I'm 5'7 3/4", not a full 5'8". My wife is, so we had to make sure that Christina wore flats to our wedding, right? Not heels. And so there's a little more fact and information that you didn't need about me, but that just sets up maybe, just maybe, I have a little bit of what they call little man syndrome, which I don't know if there's any actual science behind that one either. We're not going to apply the rubric here of evidence-informed to little man syndrome. But whenever I get the question, I just want to be like, okay, I know you're asking the question about chiropractic, about natural health, about functional integrated medicine, those sort of things. I know you're asking it with this kind of default setting of, modern medicine, the pediatrician, the neurologist, the pharmaceutical system, they have evidence. Do they, though? Because the truth is, no, they don't. Well, we do have evidence of. So I'm going to go in this direction for a second, but actually if I were, because I love communication, I've studied communication, so I'm actually going to call myself out here before I even go into it. First answer I'm going to give you on this one is a straw man argument, meaning I'm going to, instead of answering the question, hey, does chiropractic and nervous system focused chiropractic care and natural health, do you guys have evidence? I'm going to answer that. But first, I'm going to take what most people would do when they don't want to answer the real question. We'll take you on a little bit of a distraction, which is also very true of why don't we shine the light back at modern medicine first before we ask these limiting questions of not pharmaceutical medicine. And so one more Iowa background to set the tone for this one. My beautiful mother, Rhonda, love you. Shout out to my mama. I'm the youngest of four. I have a brother who is closest in age to me, Brett. Love you too, you turd, you chump. Just kidding. Really love you, you moron. So the truth is, every time my brother and I, see how much we love each other right there? That's how two dudes operate, right? Anytime we'd be arguing and I'd blame Brett for something and I would point the finger at him, right? Metaphorically or actually, my mom would say, well, if you point the finger at someone else, there's three pointing back at you. So I know I'm on a podcast, but if you visually kind of point your finger out, you tend to tuck the other three back at you. And so it was a great lesson that was literally repeated again and again in my childhood to say, hey, before you point the fingers at someone else, there's three pointing back at you. Take responsibility. And that's why I was so excited to do this episode, because we have a responsibility to absolutely walk you through as parents, whether you are all in for drug-free care and chiropractic, or whether you are that skeptical dad, you are that skeptical parent, you are that skeptical other provider, and you go, where's the evidence? Show it to me. Well, let's pretend that I'm a traditional medicine or skeptical person on the medical side of the fence, pointing the finger at us and asking for evidence. Where is the evidence for modern medicine? Well, if we look at it, depending upon how you look at it, modern medicine is the third leading cause of death in the world. If you really dig deeper and you look at it and go, it's not just all the dangers and the side effects and the awfulness that comes with pharmaceutical intervention, but if you really were to measure it up more and say, hey, they also don't teach us anything about health. They don't teach us anything about lifestyle. They don't really do anything that is actually healthcare. And so if you put lifestyle and environmental challenges in there as well and say, man, if we had a doctors, pediatricians who really taught our families what it takes to be healthy, where health really comes from, that we can't just avoid sickness and disease. If you put the full weight of responsibility on the system, the evidence doesn't come out good at all. And I could go on, honestly, in this kind of answering it for them first. And then you look at the research behind things like ADHD medications, behind anxiety and antidepressant medications. And you look at the evidence behind the chemical imbalance theory. I've done a whole episode about that on the podcast. And it's not strong. It's not there. It's not good. And it's definitely not as good, not even in the stratosphere, as to how hard they sell it as scientific, because the science behind so much of the medical intervention, from the overuse of antibiotics, that science is super clear. We are really, really damaging kids' health in massive ways, long-term, not just short-term stomach issues and everything else, but long-term, weakening their immune system, messing with the gut-brain connection, and even those are connected to ADHD and autism. What about the evidence behind vaccination? Is it as strong as they sell on the nightly news and the commercials? And, no, it is not, and it's not even close. So I'm a scientist. I read research and have every freaking day for 20 plus years. So I know it, but I'm also, and here's where we're going to turn the corner to answer the question directly. Where's the evidence for what you do? Well, I'm also in clinical practice. And this is where parents are going to learn so much from this one, because true evidence-informed care that you want to choose from your kiddo is not dependent upon either A, a bunch of white papers, scientific journals, and research papers, or B, clinical experience and preferences. That's not even the right word, just clinical experience and what's called pattern recognition. I'll teach that next, of the clinician, of the practitioner that you choose. It's not one or the other, it's and. And this is where I am so certain that through this podcast and through this platform and this episode right here, having this tough, very important conversation is a great way to reaffirm and teach once again a foundational premise and principle that we stand on. Why does everything have to be an or? Why does a family need a pediatrician or a pediatric chiropractor? Couldn't they have a pediatrician and a pediatric chiropractor? Why does a family have to have a trained emergency, crisis, sickness, illness expert pediatrician? So let's call them conventional. Or an integrative functional, hey, let's work on nutrition, let's work on supplementation, let's work on detoxification first, nurse practitioner or pediatrician. Wouldn't they be actually better served if that switched from an or to an and? Why do we have to live in this world where everything is either or? What we would love to see, the prayer, the plan I have for future generations of my kiddos is to get everybody to stop going after each other so much and replace the or with a whole lot more and. Why not have both approaches? And actually, we're going to add a bunch of ands into this one. Evidence-informed care for your child and your family is three things put together, because it's not just the white papers, the meta-analysis, the RCTs, and what shows up in scientific journals, which, by the way, where do you think the funding for most research comes from? Do you think funding in the billions of dollars from pharmaceutical companies and government grants, do you think it's gone to chiropractic, supplements, diet changes? No, it's gone to R&D in gigantic companies that are valued in trillions of dollars. So research costs a ton of money to do. So those with cajillions tend to be able to crank out more of it and buy off those who sell it to us, right, on the media, and allow it to continue to move forward, even though the research behind a lot of things is terrible, but the government still keeps pushing it forward. In fact, even mandating and supposedly requiring things, which, by the way, your kids can go to school without them. That's just how it goes. Okay, snuck that in there, didn't I? So the truth is that is often bought and paid for research, but research is actually only one of the three elements of what's called the evidence-informed triangle. The other two components are as important. They are equally important. So when you see this all come together, you're going to become so empowered for the choices you make with your family. And you're going to become so informed about the doctors and the actions and the care options and the treatments you choose for your family and those that you maybe don't. Because the second form of the triangle, the second component of the triangle is not just research, not just white papers, but it's clinical expertise and practice-based experiences. So we named this the Experience Miracles podcast because every single day in practice, going on 20 years, the clinical protocols we use, which are first figured out and put together via the first component of the triangle, clinical research studies. So RCTs, mechanistic trials, case series, and really deep dives into science of like neuroplasticity, neurodevelopment. So we use a whole lot of number one, okay, which is best available research evidence to figure out the best clinical protocols to get the best results in neurologically focused, drug-free natural health. So that then is the pattern recognition, the hands-on skill and tracking, and we track this religiously, the actual clinical functional outcomes that we get in practice. And we've been doing this for 20 years. We've now taught over 1,000 chiropractors who use the same protocols. So second layer of evidence-informed care is the clinician's clinical experience. But what I'm most excited to tell you is, and not everybody on the quote unquote other side of the fence wants you to know about number two. And unfortunately, which is really mystifying, frustrating, and disheartening, they really don't want you, parents, patients, to know about number three. Because guess what the third component of the evidence-informed triangle is? Patient values, goals, and preferences. Let me say that one more time. The third absolute essential component of an evidence-informed model is patient values, goals, and preferences. The care you choose for your kids and family must line up with that person or parent in the pediatric world actually wants, believes, understands, and can commit fully to. Now, let's just stay on this one for a couple of minutes because it's essential and no one else talks about it. How does it feel as a parent when you go against your wishes and against what you know, feel, believe, and understand deep down in your gut for different interventions? Now, you can probably tell which tree I'm barking up here, but sadly, unfortunately, frustratingly, maddeningly, in practice, also pretty much every single day, we get to sit knee to knee and listen and hear out parents as they tell us the story of different interventions in the one size fits all, everybody must do this. This is supposedly where the science and the evidence is model of care, which is a bunch of medical interventions that have a bunch of side effects. And every single day in practice, we meet parents who felt forced into that decision, forced into that intervention. They felt ridiculously uninformed. They did not feel like they had all the evidence. They did not feel like the clinician took the time to answer all their questions, alleviate all their concerns, explain all the neuroscience behind it, and then go forth or not with the intervention. And so what evidence-based care, which is only, so here's how this all maps out. Man, I hope you're understanding this one as you see the bigger picture and the full picture with it. When conventional kind of white coat medicine puts too much credence and too much weight on randomized clinical trials, meta-analysis, and they force everybody into this pharmaceutical, scientific, here's the science, there's nothing else that matters, we're all gonna do this, every kid gets the same, we do everything the same. When they force people into that because they've overweighted that 1/3, remember, it's a third of evidence informed. This is where the research says, what's the best outcomes? Literally, what gets the best health outcomes? Sidebar, not the best profits. What gets the best health outcomes for kids, families, and patients? It's when all three of these boxes are checked. Best available evidence? Yes, research matters. We're not throwing the baby out with the bathwater. But second, clinical expertise. Does this clinician keep up with what's working best, or are they 10 to 20 years outdated? And most is, because it takes 10 to 20 years for research to even have a chance to catch up to what we're actually seeing work in clinical practice. You want a clinician who is literally in the trenches, knee to knee, serving kids every single day and says, hey, you know what works better today? These things that we do, which are better than yesterday. Your clinicians, which you could trust with the PX Docs Network, we are constantly striving and getting better. We're reading the research, we're doing research, we're understanding, we're updating our clinical protocols, we're tracking our outcomes and our results through not just symptoms and conditions and alleviation of it, like medications and saying, oh, it worked. No, we're actually changing neurophysiological function. We're tracking changes through HRV and insight scans. We're tracking changes through your child's life through the intake and saying they're sleeping better, they're regulating better, they're pooping better, they're breathing better, their digestion is better, their immune function is better, their sensory motor, their tone, their motor coordination is better, their development is better. So there's research coming out of our freaking ears in clinical practice for the last 20 years for tens of thousands, actually the math, I gotta get better at math, hundreds of thousands, we might even be in the millions of patients right now that these perfect storm PX Docs, neurologically focused clinical care protocols have been put in place and the results are there. And the third part of this is the one that I hope you can really feel for me that I want to shine the light on. We want to shine the light on through the PX Docs platform and say, hey, you know what, y'all? We work for you. You decide. You're the boss. It's your child. Okay? No kid goes into a system and is supposed to follow the whole system. It's your family's system. It's your desires. It's your goals. It's your understanding. It's your research. It's your belief. It's your gut instinct that matters most. And what our obsession is with the care model that we've put together with PX Docs, which makes it one of the many more things that makes it so incredibly unique and so empowering and so exciting and so transformative for families. It's not just the care, it's not just the adjustments, it's not just the interventions, it's just the model, it's the perspective, it's the philosophy that says we actually honor evidence-informed care. I wish medicine, as we know it, would too, because the results would be a whole lot better instead of so detrimental, because parents know best. And you know how to actually get the best outcomes? Back to and. This shouldn't be the doctor does this and the parent says this, and it's the doctor's wishes or the parent's wishes. Why don't we communicate? Why don't we conversate? Why don't we ask each other questions? Why don't we explain things? Why don't we come together? Why don't we collaborate? That is the and approach. And if there's a philosophy that really explains the PX Doc's philosophical major premise approach to care and how vividly different it is than what you get in the conventional pediatrician or medical world, it's that. We are in partnership with you. We are actually, and so I want parents, I want dads. I'm going to get researchy next. We're not done. I'm going to get even more sciencey next. Okay. I'm going to break down each of these pillars a bit more of these three angles of it, or three components of evidence informed. But if you really see this and you really understand this and you get the full picture, not the picture we've, had sold to us, the limited kind of bought out, description and definition of what evidence-based care is and evidence-informed care is, the truth is you're actually going to find that this model is more based upon the evidence-informed triangle than any other model out there. And if that's not mind-blowing and going, whoa, I didn't know. That's why I'm so grateful, so glad that God gave us this platform and this podcast so we can share all of our science information, but even these philosophical meets scientific premises and explanations, because this is the information that isn't honestly too complex, but it's hidden in plain sight. And we're given so many kind of red herring, straw man, you kind of pick your language concept here. We've been told so many lies and so many half-truths and so many mistruths and given so many distractions that it's just been this thing. Did you know actually in the 1980s that the chiropractic profession, it was actually a Chicago chiropractor who took up this lawsuit against the AMA. Did you know that we actually sued the AMA and won? And they were literally found guilty of completely making up lies of chiropractic and non-pharmaceutical interventions being anti-scientific and unscientific. Did you know that's literally a bought and paid for lie? That there is a lawsuit that they lost? That's why chiropractic is still around, everybody, because it not only is based upon clinical, neurological, neurophysiological science. Like we got science coming out of our ears that supports the care we do, literally on white papers, in research labs. It's there, it's everywhere. But we also just match perfectly the majority of patient preferences. Because I haven't met too many parents who are like, you know what, I would love, if I could get more medications into my kid, we'll get more health out. Do you think that about your own health? No, we know. This evidence is true. The more medication someone is on, the more their quality of life gets destroyed. Now, that's a general synopsis. Obviously, there is conditions. I mean, type 1 diabetes, there's clearly genetic conditions where God has given us modern medicine. I don't want to shut down pharmaceutical research. I actually am someone who's literally had a medical miracle son and a chiropractic miracle son. I hope they continue to crush it. I hope they continue to have millions and billions to do research with and come up with cancer-saving medications and come up with medications that combat these chronic illnesses and these genetic challenges that our kids. I want them to win, but I don't want it to be an or anymore. We really want it to be an and. They can win because if they're winning, more lives are being saved. But you ever heard the phrase, too much of a good thing? That's what's happened over there, right? And they've kind of taken their ball and ran with it, right? And they become a ball hog. I don't know how I'm bringing in that metaphor into this. But the whole premise of this conversation is there is evidence. There is all sorts of science. And in fact, we tend to go 3 for 3 on the evidence-informed triangle, better and more so than those who want to kind of say, oh, there's no science over there, stay away, because they are taking a limited viewpoint of what evidence-informed care is. So let's go a little bit deeper before we wrap this one up. So the best available, pillar 1, right? The first component of the first corner of the triangle, if you will, is the best available research evidence. Now, again, a very true challenge for chiropractic natural drug-free care here. So this is even in the supplement industry, the essential oil industry, even honestly PT/OT and those sort of kind of movement-based therapies and interventions. We're not big pharma. None of us are. Not chiropractic and not any of our homies, right? In the natural drug-free holistic root cause approach, we don't have big pharma or government level funding just yet the world is a shifting, isn't it? And so the body of neuromechanistic work on chiropractic adjustments, though, is growing fast. There's incredible research happening here in the United States, but actually the leading nervous system focused care lab comes from New Zealand. I'm flying there later on this summer to teach our CERT program in Adelaide, Australia, and then I'm going over to New Zealand to meet with Dr. Heidi, Dr. Kelly Holt, and all the researchers that are over there that are doing this work. But there has been absolute work. I'm going to very overview it here, and we'll link it into the show notes for this one. For those of you that really do have, and by the way, why do you think I found all this evidence myself? Why do you think I'm so entrenched in the science of the work that we do? Because I started my career as a chiropractor, skeptical of subluxation and nervous system focused care. And so I did the research myself. So I want everybody, if I still got you on this one, I want everybody to know that when skeptical dads and skeptical providers and other doctors come to us with these questions, I couldn't be happier, because what an opportunity to see the bigger picture of evidence-informed care, like I've been talking about to this point, and what an opportunity to put on your nerd glasses with me and come on down this rabbit hole, because it's warm in here, it's nice in here, and we have a huge treasure trove of clinical research papers, scientific studies that absolutely prove birth trauma. Let me go in order. Maternal distress, fertility distress, birth trauma, physical injury to the brainstem, vagus nerve dysfunction, subluxation, nervous system dysregulation, dysautonomia, developmental diastasis, dyskinesis, dysregulation of the nervous system, toxic overload, the overuse of antibiotics, altered neuromechanics through altered proprioception, mechanoreception. We have research all about neuroplasticity and the model that we use to get brains and nervous systems better. The research behind subluxation and the sympathetic storm is as solid as you could ever see, and more comes out literally every single week to add to our, and we have this, we literally have an entire super document put together, and all the research is on the website. So there is documentation, there is meta-analysis, there is all sorts of studies that have been done to prove the perfect storm theory that says this is what's really causing kids to get sick. Now, if you're really good at this, you still have an unanswered question. Okay, so we know that the perfect storm, we know that subluxation, we know that nervous system dysfunction, dysautonomia, and all of these things you talk about on the podcast, they're definitely happening. They are causing kids to get sick, and they are the most overlooked, well, I shouldn't say under research, because it's really getting good these days, but they're the part of the conversation that we need to get out there. But what about the adjustment? How does it work? What's the evidence behind the chiropractic care model, and how much do you have there? Now, this is where we are lighter. Like if we were to stack up the papers that look at, unfortunately, what we would call the negative side, so the perfect storm and the science behind it, that stack of papers, if we were literally actually to print them all off, that stack is much higher than the papers that have been done on chiropractic care protocols and the adjustment. But there is still a ton of them. So we have shown that so the standard, I shouldn't say standard, no, that I said that wrong. Neurologically focused chiropractic adjustments. Actually, I said it right, and I'm going to add to it. We have shown that even standard adjustments, so kind of we'll call it that for today. The standard regular chiropractic adjustments, right, change brain function. They improve sensory motor integration. They improve prefrontal cortex function. They improve cerebellar function. They improve executive function circuits. They improve sensory motor tone and coordination, and what's called kind of the sensory motor just loop, right? Afferent, meaning input to efferent. So that improves efficiency of the brain, improves function of the brain, including the executive functioning part of it, the prefrontal cortex. We know that. Then Dr. Heidi and her team actually did additional research. Once they saw over the last 10 to 20 years that literally chiropractic adjustments are improving neuroplasticity, they're improving tone and coordination, they're improving autonomic nervous system, they are getting a parasympathetic shift, they are improving HRV. So we've seen this neurologically focused chiropractic care model through these neurologically focused adjustments. We have seen it be true. Chiropractors experienced it in practice. Remember, the second component of evidence-informed, we saw it on the tables. We saw it in real life, which I think matters more. I don't want to rank these three components of evidence-informed triangle against each other today because it's all about the and. But if you made me pull one out and rank them, I'd put parent and patient preferences first. I'd put clinical experience second, and I would put actually white papers and research third most important. Now, again, my answer is and. They all matter massively. But now that these piles are starting to and actually over in New Zealand, I think they have almost 40 to 50 researchers now. We're going over there. We're doing tons of fundraising. We're getting involved to do our clinical protocols. Perfect Storm, Neurotonal Care is getting integrated in there. It's an exciting time to see this catch up. But they also did another study that actually delineated between a subluxation-based, neurologically focused chiropractic adjustment and a more standard randomized spinal structural that most people think of chiropractic. And guess which one changed the brain even more, even better? The neurologically focused adjustment. And so research right now in the neurologically focused insight scans, HRV, vagus nerve, everything we talk about on this podcast, there is solid research behind it, and it is exploding. If I do this episode again 3 years from now, I'm going to have so much more to research citations to put into the show notes and put into our articles. If I do this in 10 years from now, I am confident that we will literally have 10 times minimum the amount of evidence we have right now, and we have incredible evidence right now. Now, number 2 and number 3, I think in closing, kind of rounding third base with this Q&A episode, I think I can be a little bit briefer because we've hit it so hard in my main construct here. But the clinical expertise, and also I probably am going to go a little bit lighter into number 2 because it would require me talking about myself in a, fancy sort of way. And if you've listened to the podcast much at all, that is my least favorite thing to talk about is the word I or me or my. But goodness gracious, we have clinical experience and practice-based evidence in our brick and mortar practice, PwC Chiropractic. It's been the leading. We always call PwC in our brick and mortar practice the lab. Like, we are the doctors, and I am technically the chief hope dealer there on the team. No one stays up to speed on the research at the speed, the level, and the veracity that we do. No one continues to refine, improve, and update our clinical protocols. No one pays attention to what are called clinical patterns and clinical correlations and finds the space between the notes and finds the needle in the haystack that gets this seizure pattern better when we didn't have it figured out last month, that gets this neuroimmune respiratory dysfunction for this chronically sick kid and gets better results with them than we did last year. No one is looking at pandas and saying, you know what, this is a tough clinical case. We got to get better. We got to recognize deeper patterns. We got to improve the way we're adjusting in our care planning and reading the scans. We are in practice every single day getting better tomorrow than we are today. And we're pretty stinking good at clinical pattern recognition and results. And we don't take this lightly. We don't go, hope you get better. We don't go, let's see how it goes. If you've been under care with a PX Doc, we track changes with, so number 2, is this working in practice per your child, per patient. So now we're done with meta-analysis, everybody. Now we're done with studies. Now we're done at lumping everybody together. And the most important thing about practice is that you personalize, customize, and individualize your care like crazy, and you put blinders on when it comes to that kid and that patient, and you say, is this working for them? And here's how we do that. We track functional objective outcomes first. We use the insight scans, neurothermography, neuro-EMG, so neuromotor tone and coordination tracking, and we use HRV, heart rate variability. So we use cutting edge technology that is not looking for a diagnosis. It's not looking for a condition. It's not going to give, oh, look at that, that's this disease. No. It's measuring nervous system dysfunction, dysregulation, dysautonomia, sympathetic dominance, subluxation, vagus nerve dysfunction, parasympathetic exhaustion. There is all sorts of nerdy clinical criteria that we use through our insight scans, and then we do what's called a 5-step neurotonal analysis on the table in the adjusting rooms every single visit. The objective findings, the objective functional approach that is taken to our care model for every kid. By the way, this isn't just kids with autism and epilepsy. This is how we check our wellness babies with the insight scans, with the deep dive functional analysis, and with the neurotonal multi-step analysis every single time. You'll never meet a clinician who does this advanced functional objective analysis and examination every single step of the way, because the reason we do that is not just on day 1 with the initial intake exam to get a baseline and then we go, let's track the rest by symptoms. No, the reason I'm really going deep on this functional pattern assessment with our insight scans and our neurotonal approach is because this is what we track changes with. We now do the scans every 2, 4, 6 week intervals, sometimes even every couple of days if it's an intensive protocol. So we are actually watching, tracking your child getting better neurophysiologically, and that tends to get better first, so functional changes. Second, so we're still in layer 2, we're still in function 2 of the evidence-informed. So the first thing we track is what's called neurological function, restoration, reorganization of function. We can actually track this scientifically, okay, and clinically. The second thing starts to get into what's called the subjective. So if you've been in healthcare, you know you got to take SOAP notes. Subjective is, how's the patient feeling? How are they doing? What's changing with life, with symptoms, with conditions? Objective is what I just got done talking about. So actually on your paperwork, they go in the other direction, which it should be the other way. It should be, I've never said this out. It would be, if I actually, the way we take paperwork and the way we actually track changes, you have to get the objective functional first. Oh, I'm really nerdy. I hope I didn't lose too many of you, but this is super, this would change everything. This one little, seems like it's not important, but geez, if we did it. It should be the O first. Clinicians should have to show that they're actually improving neurophysiological function. So it should be OSAP. Yeah, would that be objective, subjective, assessment, and then plan? Okay, because the SOAP note is subjective, objective, assessment, or analysis, and then the plan. That's how you take your notes. And every practitioner out there who's in clinical practice, I just made them upset because the bane of our existence is doing our paperwork, just like kind of anybody in any job, but holy cow, is it hard in healthcare to keep up. Anyways, we should do the O first, objective functional assessment, then the S. Now in our work, when we're tracking changes in your patient, it's getting better. In this kiddo, now we go into what's called the neurological soft signs, which is they're sleeping better, they're eating better, they're pooping and their digestive motility and function is better, their respiration, their lymphatic, their immune function is better, they're getting sick less often. And then the real big one that sets up brain-based changes with like epilepsy, autism, speech, communication, ADHD, anxiety, is when you start to see what's called sensory motor integration. So their posture is getting better, their gait is getting better, their tone is getting better, their motor coordination is getting better. The muscles are the most connected to brain function. We think that's all about gut-brain connection. Digestion, nutrition is essential. It is. There's a strong gut-brain connection. But the most important connection to brain function is motor, tone, coordination, and balance. So what subluxation does is it absolutely wreaks havoc on the neurospinal sensory motor function, and it completely disorganizes, stress out, and disconnects the brain. And so we track changes there. Neurosoft signs. That's the second kind of ranking of criteria. And then the third one are the big brain-based changes. Is their behavior better? Is their emotions better? Is their focus better? Is their speech and socialization better? Are the seizures better? So we do track those. We don't hang our hat on our care works or not based upon whether the symptoms go away or not, because that's not actual root cause healing. That actually, right in this evidence-informed science, skeptical conversation, it's a great time to really answer this clearly. If we put all the onus entirely of the success of our care or not on whether the symptoms get better or not, that would be medicine, not natural, neurologically root cause focused care. And so we don't throw it out. We have a heart. We literally want nothing more than for the child's entire neurophysiological brain-based function to be restored to 100% so that the brain, the body, and the nervous system, which is designed and programmed by God to heal fully, optimally, entirely, that's all we want. You better believe that is absolutely to the T what we're planning for, gunning for, praying for, working our butts off for. It is in every kid. Not every kid is going to symptomatically get all the way better with root cause chiropractic care. Not every kid is going to get off of every medication and never have a seizure again and never have a meltdown again and never get an ear infection again and never have challenges again. Some of this neurophysiological dysfunction gets deep enough into the system that even when we go all in with our care, sometimes we can't root it all the way out. That's what's called kind of the limitations of matter over the course of the chiropractic principles. Sometimes we're blessed to help a kiddo who truly has a genetic condition. It's real. It's actually genetic, right? And so what we're looking to do there is optimize and vastly improve their quality of life, even if that means some stuff we wish wasn't there will still be there. And so in this clinical experience and practice-based evidence of this, there's a lot to be tracked to say this care is working. And it's not just all symptoms, and it's not just all conditions. The most important part is the functional objective analysis. I went deeper there than I planned, but anybody who listens to the podcast, every time, like, I'll just cover this for a couple minutes. They're like, he's going to cover it for 20 minutes. So you kind of know that, okay? Instead of long story short, it's long story longer, okay? And deeper and more granular and neurological, and you can probably assume that the vagus nerve is going to make its way into that conversation. So what I want you to know about the PX Docs care specifically in terms of the second element of evidence-informed care, we are a living, breathing, practice-based research institute, and the greatest practice, the greatest evidence you ever want to have access to for your children does not come in a lab at a university. It comes from clinicians in practice, seeing miracles happen, experiencing them, recording them, tracking them, updating their protocols, and saying, here's how that happened. Let's do more of this. So this number two, especially as a practitioner, if I'm looking inward and saying, what's my favorite? That one, because I love being in practice. I love figuring out every step of the way how to get better, how to experience more miracles and get incredible results with even tougher cases. That's what I live for. And then number three, don't laugh anybody, but I can be brief with this one. What do you want? Do you want a class 2 narcotic for your child's ADHD, or would you rather use neurologically-focused chiropractic and clean nutrition and living? Do you want to address, depression, anxiety with medications that are proven to have lifelong dependency, or do you want to get to the root cause and get your child's brain and nervous system actually better? So pillar number 3 of evidence-informed, patient, parent, values, and preferences. Let's not poo-poo this one here. This, for you, is the lead horse. Okay? And I know it can be tricky in significant married couples and making decisions together for your children, because I know some of you grew up in a household where it was about informed, empowered, let's educate ourselves, and others grew up in a household that says you don't question anything the doctor says. We got to be done with that. Okay? That's an outdated, not scientifically, that doesn't map out really well when you research it. When we all follow lock in step what the pediatrician and the big pharma system tells us to do, well, that's why we have the highest rates of chronic illness, autism, ADHD, anxiety, allergies, asthma. We've never been sicker because we were told not to get involved, not to ask questions, not to question anything. We're doing the opposite over here. We are asking you of them, ask everything. Of us, ask everything. Of them, ask anything. Of us, ask anything. Ask for this research. Ask for these explanations. Ask for your choices. See, real evidence informed isn't just, well, here's how this works. My job actually as a doctor, we took an oath to do this, by the way. Just want to sneak that in here before we're all done. Every doctor of every initial took an oath actually to provide their patients with evidence-informed care and empowered choices. You know what this is in our oath is? Oaths. That's an oath. That's a tough word to say, plural. But it's in our oath that we will educate you, empower you, inform you, answer your questions. We actually take our oath pretty dang serious over here as chiropractors and PX docs. And so in this place, this is our job that we are required and blessed, and I love doing it for you, which is, let's talk about this. Let's weigh out all of our options. Did you know that's actually supposed to be part of our training? That we sit down after we've done our case history, our examination, our interpretation, our review of the best evidence, and we sit down knee to knee with parents. We do this. This is literally part of what we do, our report of findings. And we say, hey, here's what we recommend when it comes to nervous system focused chiropractic care. And it's also our job to say, in contrast to other interventions and options, here's how this would math out and map out. That's our job. That's what you should expect of your PX doc. You can ask them the hard questions because they are trained at the level that we deliver this podcast with. Do I get to cheat? Have I probably been doing it the longest, the mostest? Am I the most obsessed with the research? Are we most obsessed with improving clinical? So is every PX doc who is 12 months into practice going to maybe be able to answer? Our PX doc tribe are listening right now. They're like, oh, Tony, Dr. Tony, you're asking a lot of us. Dang straight I am, PX doc tribe, if you're listening in, because there's nothing that matters more than the clinical results of every kid under our care. We have a hashtag, a sign off that we use real freaking all in and mean it here. Every kid counts. Parents, that means every ounce and every pound of skepticism you have, bring it in. Ask the tough questions. Have the tough conversations with us. Ask us for the scientific explanations. Ask us for the research citations. Ask us to go over your kids' insight scans and neurosoft signs and results again. None of this work is honestly very easy. It's really tough. It's multifaceted. Evidence-informed care is not a thing. Hey, show me the paper. Show me the randomized clinical trial and meta-analysis. That's a percentage of 1/3. So it's not even like the papers. There's other forms of research that are, more important, you could argue, than randomized clinical trials and meta-analysis. And so the truth is there's a lot that goes into this for providing care for your child, your family. And there's a lot that goes into this for you as a parent in making the best decisions together for your kids and your family. So those of you parents who are out there and you just say, you know what? I don't care at all about the science, the scans, the HRV, the research, what Dr. Heidi Harvick in New Zealand in the lab is doing with evoked potentials in EEG and prefrontal cortex. If you want to leave that up to us nerds and you just feel, you know what? I know in my gut, I know in my heart, I know in my soul that this is what's right for my family. That's awesome. Lean into that. Lead with that. And in the same breath, if you're the skeptical dad, the skeptical spouse, the skeptical doctor who's like, I need a lot more. I need you to walk me through this 3 times over. I want to read those research citations. I want to watch the Perfect Storm presentation. I want to get into the clinical protocol. I want to know everything about HRV and pulse rate profiler and why the one in the office is a whole lot better than Garmin, Whoop, or Aura, because they totally are, even though they're called the same thing. They're not even. If you want to go toe to toe, nerdy, neurological, clinical, research, data, science, well, that's why we built the Experience Miracles podcast. And that's why we built pxdocs.com. And that's why we train our docs that get on that listing and get on that directory and have a listing. They are trained and required to get on this level as well. So skeptical dads who were, and I always say dads, it's nothing's ever, absolute in one direction. Skeptical parents, skeptical providers, skeptical people. Thank you for asking. Continue to ask, require, and demand of us that we explain this to you and we show you what you need to see to be able to continue to move forward. And then I'm going to close with this. This is overtime, but this is essential. Don't turn this one off until you hear what I have to say here at the end. The best science is your child's results. The thing that has mystified me forever, and I have a miracle. I've got a modern miracle. By the way, do you know every medical intervention from whole body cooling to ECMO to other sorts of surgeries and things they did with my son in the most advanced level 3 NICU in Chicagoland with the top doctors and neonatologists and neurologists and clinicians in the world medically saving my son's life? Did you know that pretty much none of that, not a single intervention that saved my son's life, has a randomized clinical trial that proves doing it is better and more life-saving on outcomes than not? Did you know that what they used to save my son's life has, if you were to take a limited, very limited approach to the question, where's the evidence for that? Did you know it doesn't exist? Because who would do a study where you let half of the children, kids, babies, potentially die when you know from practice, layer number 2 of evidence informed, that doing extracorporeal membrane oxygenation, doing this surgery, providing this medication that has never been studied on neonatal infants in the NICU, doing whole body cooling, did you know that they have to do it first to find out if it works? And once they do, what kind of human could keep it away from 50% of kids in order to study it and supposedly satisfy the holy grail of randomized clinical trial? Did you know that as a parent, so layer number 3 of evidence informed, did you know that I didn't ask for a single study except one intervention, the whole body cooling? That didn't make sense to me because my son had persistent pulmonary hypertension. When you get cold, your blood vessels and your lungs constrict and your heart rate slows down. And my son needed to get warm to get perfusion into his body and into his brain. So I actually did go to town with them about the research because I told you I'm a nerd and I have been for a long time. So I asked them, I was the skeptical father in the NICU. I was the skeptical parent with a heck of an education and understanding that said, show me the evidence that whole body cooling for my son is both beneficial and not detrimental to his primary condition, which is pulmonary hypertension. Guess who ended up being right on that one? Not them, but that's just one of them. When I asked about the evidence for ECMO, there is no randomized clinical trials at the time for Oliver. When I asked about another surgery that he was about to have, there was no, they just knew. And I want you to feel that from me. They just knew. They were his doctors. They had clinical experience, and it was our preference, obviously, save our son's life. I don't need you to print off the paper. I don't need you to print off the meta-analysis or the randomized clinical trial. There's no time for that. We're here. You're the best clinicians with the most experience ever saving these babies' lives. And I will never have words to thank that hospital, those surgeons, those doctors, and whoever came up with ECMO and all the different procedures and all the research that led to that being done and all the brilliance and all the boldness and all the, in real life testing and figuring out that the clinicians who first did that work figured out. I can never thank them enough. So it all coalesces together. And the truth is, in the randomized clinical trial, show me the paper, there's a whole lot less evidence for all things pediatric and family care than you probably thought there is. But thankfully, awesomely, incredibly, that's not the only piece of evidence that matters. It's one piece of the pie, and the other pieces are as important, and in certain cases, even more important. Thank you, everyone, for asking this question. Where is the evidence? Continue to ask the questions of all your doctors, all your providers. Continue to sit down knee to knee with them and have them answer your questions and go through the explanations and get into the science and the research and the functional objective data with you. This is what your child deserves. This is what your kids and family deserve, is a full 3 for 3, not one or the other, but a 3 for 3 match on evidence-informed care for your baby, because every kid counts, and the science is best played out through individual case studies. Why we throw case studies out and say they don't matter, I'll never understand, because my son is an individual case study that multiple of the medical interventions that they did for him that saved his life have no randomized clinical trial and probably never will. And the chiropractic clinical care protocols at this time have no randomized clinical trial that said we adjusted these 50% of these kids with traumatic brain injuries in the NICU from day one, 2 to 3 times a day using these protocols, and the other 50% we didn't. I personally, if you really want to see this in overtime, my opinions on this, I'll never participate in that study. I'll never let half of kids not get adjusted who need to get adjusted, because I've got the clinical experience, pillar number 2 of this triangle, to say, I know the results will come from this. So I will never put my name or participate in a randomized clinical trial where half the kids don't get adjusted just so we can print out a paper and say, hey, look, there's the evidence. Because that part of evidence ain't near as important as the entirety and the totality of the triangle. Thank you for tuning into today's episode. Do you have a question that you would like to submit? Either send it to support@pxdocs.com with the subject Ask Dr. Tony, or head on over to our socials @pxdocs, where you can submit your question in our stories every single week. Every kid counts and every family counts, so let's leave no questions left unanswered. If you loved this episode and you want to help us reach more kids, we would so appreciate if you left a review and a rating on your favorite platform. God bless. Be well. We'll see you on the next one.